Hello curious peeps, welcome to another video. Have you ever wondered what tough looks like? What not having fear looks like? I have prepared for you a video of the 5 most unacknowledged, toughest humans who have ever walked this earth throughout history. Heroes that did the unbelievable, who faced entire armies alone and defeated them with honor. Sit down, get comfy. My name is Curious Pepper. Get ready for some spicy history. Yeah, the name Marcus Cassius Sceva isn't going to ring a bell. He was overshadowed by the great Julius Caesar. However, Caesar didn't single-handedly defeat entire armies of bloodthirsty barbarian warriors. Caesar commanded armies of the toughest and most badass soldiers ever assembled. Marcus Cassius Sceva was one of them. He is considered one of the toughest and most deadliest Romans of all time. Under Sceva, his soldiers would always be pumped for war, no matter the circumstance. He whipped them into shape, got them pumped up, and when enemy legions were in range, he personally led the defenders into battle. His fighting was more brutal than seeing wild lions fighting each other. In one battle, Sceva killed so many guys that his sword became blunt. So he cut one guy's hand off with a single blow with his knife, and crushed another man's skull with a huge rock. Creative, right? In this battle, as he was getting nailed from all sides during the fight, his helmet was destroyed. His shield was full with enemy arrows. He had a javelin stabbed in his shoulder, a deep wound in his thigh from a sword, and got shot in the left eye socket with a freaking arrow. Surprisingly, he survived and just got angrier. He pulled the freaking arrow out of his eye, threw it down, and resumed killing like a bloodthirsty beast. Finally, after over an hour of fierce fighting, the loss of blood started to get to Sceva. He collapsed, fell to his knees, and struggled to stand. The enemy legion, seeing that the commander was down for the TKO, called for a break in the fighting. 2 Pompeian commanders approached Sceva, their hands outstretched to accept his surrender. They proudly asked him if he was ready to surrender to their glory. Sceva responded by drawing his blunt-ass sword, slashing one guy's throat with it, and slicing the other guy in half from shoulder to groin. The fighting resumed immediately. Sceva's men bravely held the line. Pompey was denied total victory, and a few days later, Caesar was able to utterly annihilate them at the Battle of Pharsalus. In the end, Sceva miraculously survived his wounds and was promoted to the highest rank in the centurion in the legion and given a gift of 200 sesterces. Sceva continued fighting with Caesar, and after Julius was stabbed to death by traitors, loyal Sceva joined the armies of Octavian and got revenge on the conspirators at the Battle of Actium. Marcus Cassius Sceva is truly an unsung badass and hero of Rome. This is the tale of a heroic and badass dentist who fought an army by himself. Ben Al Salamon was your typical American boy in the 1920s. He grew up, went to college, and later became a dentist. He was later met with being drafted. However, he was kinda lucky as he was assigned as a military dentist in Hawaii. The chances of him going to fight in combat were super small. Small, but not impossible, especially not if he was the one that volunteered to take the place of a medic who had been killed on the field. In the battlefield, Ben showed off his machine gun skills. He found himself struggling to treat increasing floods of wounded soldiers, while at the same time also fighting off Japanese soldiers with his handy machine gun. He courageously forced the wounded and the other men to leave, and he single-handedly and viciously took out 98 enemy soldiers. Sadly, he died on the field on July 7, 1944. When his comrades retook the camp from the Japanese, they found him collapsed on a machine gun pierced with a whopping 76 bullets. All in all, his brave actions saved dozens of lives that day and made it possible for the others to continue the fighting.
If you have seen the movie 300, you will without a doubt know what Leonidas is famous for.
For those that have not, Leonidas was a Spartan king, a true badass legend who became immortalized in Greek literature because of his heroic last stand against Persian invaders. Leonidas is a legend without a writer. Almost nothing is known of his background. However, his toughness is remembered and it's legendary. Leonidas managed to lead a small army into Thespians and Thebans, along with his famous 300 Spartan warriors, to the famous Hawk Gate, to be able to hold off the much larger invading Persian army led by King Xerxes. Leonidas viciously demonstrated how deadly of a warrior he was and led the army into a battle where they slaughtered hundreds of Persian men. He demonstrated how much of a badass general and soldier he was. In the end, Leonidas' army was eventually defeated, but not before Leonidas died in combat after fighting to the last gasp of air and causing massive damage to the Persian army. After the battle, the deaths of these brave men, led by Leonidas, caused the rest of Greece into action against the Persian army. Their sacrifice made by Leonidas and his men to protect Greece lives on in our memories even today. In the early 20th century, Mexico was really screwed. All of the power was consolidated into the hands of rich hacendados, who lived in these insanely huge houses that made millions of pesos off what was essentially the slave labor of employees. As a young man, Pancho Villa didn't set out to change the entire economic and social structure of Mexico. He didn't grow up with tough-ass plans to bring freedom to the oppressed and righting the wrongs that were being done to his people. He was just a plain guy. That is until one day he came home from work to find the owner of the hacienda in the process of trying to rape his 12-year-old sister. He became infuriated. Villa punched the dude in the mouth and blew his face off with a revolver. He was forced to escape right after this incident. He did not want to be punished by the corrupt law. He got on his horse and rode off to ride into a mountain range called Sierra Madre, where he joined up with a gang of awesome sombrero-wearing bandits. They would rob from the rich to give to the poor. Then one day in 1910, an hombre named Francisco Madero decided he was going to start a revolution in Mexico and overthrow the corrupt president Porfirio Diaz, and he recruited Villa and his bandits to his army. After only a few months, Villa's forces were triumphant, and Diaz was removed from power. Some guy tried to lead a counter-revolution against Madero, but Villa's bandits turned that movement down by putting the organizer out of his misery, by bashing over his head with a sack full of beer cans and stuffing him into a hole in the middle of the desert. Shortly after, Madero was betrayed by Victor Huerta, one of his top generals, and Villa was thrown into prison and declared himself dictator of Mexico. The iron walls of the prison weren't able to hold down tough-ass Pancho Villa. He broke out of the prison and immediately went to work living for revenge like a true badass. Villa's revenge against Huerta was quick and efficient. He won every battlefield engagement with the enemy. He won Huerta. However, he got crossed by Carranza and got vanished. Villa asked the US for help to beat Carranza. The US told him to kick rocks and that they were going to support Carranza in this battle. Understandably, this really infuriated Pancho Villa. In 1960, he took his cavalry, assembled his army, and mounted the only successful foreign invasion of the US soil in the 20th century, riding into the town of Columbus of New Mexico, defeating the US 13th Cavalry, and he used a bunch of guns and ammo before escaping back across the border. The US never found Villa. He was assassinated in 1923. That's just how it goes sometimes, especially when you're really good at making enemies everywhere you go. Crazy enough, his last words were, "Don't let it end like this. Tell them I said something." Galvarino is essentially a Mapuche superhero that likes to stab his enemies a lot. Galvarino was a Mapuche tribal war leader. Galvarino and his tribe were captured by the Spanish after one particularly brutal battle near the province of Lagunilla. Deciding that drastic measures needed to be taken to further enforce the Spanish rule on the Mapuche people, the Spanish governor ordered that Galvarino was to have his right hand cut off with an axe as punishment for raising his arms against the Spanish. His right hand was cut off. Then Galvarino unhesitantly offered his left hand to be removed. The Spanish executioner chopped through that one as well, because what else was he supposed to do? It said that he didn't mutter a single cry. He then offered to be killed by placing his head on the stump, but the Spanish denied that request. That was a huge mistake, because after Galvarino was released, he led his tribe to continue fighting by strapping knives onto his arms. On November 30, 1557, when 1,500 Spaniards were ambushed by his 3,000 Mapuche warriors outside of Millarapue, the native forces were being led into battle by Galvarino, the guy with knives tied to his wrist and the bloodthirsty look on his face. Unfortunately, Galvarino's troops were defeated after an intense 2-hour fight. Galvarino killed Spanish like some kind of Wolverine on steroids. He was a total bloodthirsty beast. Unfortunately, like most unsung heroes, he was recaptured by the Spanish and 30 of his most badass warriors were hanged from trees. How he died is still a mystery. Some argue that he was hanged by the Spanish, while others claim that he was fed to hungry dogs. And others say that he managed to kill himself in an effort to deny the Spanish the pleasure of causing his death. Either way, he definitely died after he was captured. This guy might not have changed the course of history by defeating the foreign power, but he really gave a new definition to toughness. I'm scared. Shut up, Pedro, come on. Well, that's all, curious peeps. Before you leave, share this video, like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so the curious family keeps growing. Make sure to follow me on Instagram for daily spicy history. Again, my name is Curious Pepper. Do you like spicy history? Deuces!